Hello and welcome to a Talmud Israeli production. Today we'll review the highlights of this week's course of Daf Yomi study, Masechet Gittin, pages 82 through 88, Pei Bet through Pei Chet. 82. Hamagareshet ishto, man divorces his wife. The Amrlan says to her, "Hayt muter l'chol adam. Behold, you are eligible to available to marry any man you want, ela ploni, except for so-and-so." Rabbi Eliezer Matir. Rabbi Eliezer says this divorce counts. It's valid. She is divorced. But Chachamim Mosim, whereas the sages say it doesn't count. She is not divorced. Why? Because of this stipulation, this hold over her that prevents her from marrying so and so, renders the divorce invalid. Kate said Yaseh. So what can be done to make the get kosher in the eyes of the rabbis? So he should take it back from her, and then hand it back to her a second time. And tell his soon-to-be ex-wife, behold, you are permitted to every man. However, if the stipulation of you're available to everyone except for so-and-so was actually written in the text of the get, then even if you try to erase it and redeliver the get, no good. That cannot be rectified. So if it was a verbal stipulation, it can be undone by giving the get a second time with a second handoff. If it was written and had to be erased, that's not good enough. It's totally invalid. Pei Gimel, 83. So after Rabbi Eliezer died, four great Mishnaic scholars, got together to try to disprove Rabbi Eliezer's position on the mission of the previous daf. That Rabbi Eliezer had said that if a man were to give a divorce to his wife and say, you can marry anybody, ela ploni, except for so-and-so, Eliezer says that's a valid divorce. And the following rabbis all said that he was wrong. Rabbi Yossi Haglili, Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and Rabbi Akiva. So they were having this gathering, and each one was offering a different proof, logical proof or textual proof to prove Eliezer was wrong. Amalhem Rabbi Yeshua, so Rabbi Yeshua said to them, "Ein meshiven tari lachar mita." We don't try to disprove the lion, meaning the great Rabbi Eliezer, after he died. Why? Because if he were alive, he might have been able to undermine some of your arguments. And so what you think is an ironclad proof against his position might not be. Therefore, we shouldn't even bother attempting it. Hey Dalad, 84. Harei zegitech, amnat shetochli basar chazir. This is your get on condition that you eat non-kosher, you eat pig's meat. Imhaita zara amnat shetochli truma, or if she was a non-kohen, and the get was given on condition that she eat truma, which she's not allowed to eat. Imhaita nizira amnat shtishti yain, or if she was a nizira and she's not allowed to drink wine, and the get was given on condition that she drink wine. So in all these instances, for the get to be valid, she would have to fulfill a stipulation that requires her to break a law of the Torah, or at least a rule that is incumbent upon her to keep. So the halacha is, what it says in the Talmud here, is that if she fulfills the stipulation by violating a rule of the Torah, the get is valid. If she doesn't fulfill the stipulation, which we really hope she doesn't because it would be a sin, then the get is invalid. But the point is, it's possible to make a get conditional upon violation of Torah rules and have it actually be fulfilled. Hey, 85. הרי מותר לכל אדם, לאבא ולאביך, ולאחי, לאחיך, לעבר ולכוכבים, ולכל מי שאין לה עליו קידושין כשר. If a man were to say to a woman, behold, this is your get, on condition that you're eligible to all men, except for my father, my brother, your brother, a slave, or a non-Jew, or to anyone with whom it is impossible for you to have kiddushin, that get is kosher. Why? Because it in no way constrains the woman. After all, the point of getting divorced is to allow her to be eligible to marry somebody else. And this stipulation doesn't decrease her ability in any way or diminish her ability in any way to get remarried. All the people mentioned are people whom she could not possibly get married. The law wouldn't recognize that marriage, and therefore the stipulation is irrelevant. If the man were to say to his soon-to-be ex-wife, this is your get on condition that you are eligible to marry anybody except for sinful relationships, but sinful relationships in which Kiddushin is technically valid. Like, for example, a mamzer marrying a regular Jew, or a Kohen marrying a divorcee, or a Kohen Gadol marrying a widow. All these things are forbidden technically. They're Avera, but if you go ahead and do it, the Kiddushin is valid. If a man were to make that stipulation, the get is void. Why? Because he, by his stipulation, would be diminishing her ability to remarry. Heva. What happens if two men sent two exactly similar gittin because the names were all exactly alike? Vinit arvu, and then the agent who was carrying them confused the two. He doesn't know which one is which. So what do we do now? Which one goes to which woman? Nos and shneim lazu v'shdei lazu. Both of the gittin are given to both women. This way, we cover all of our bases. No matter which one it really was, the woman will get it. Therefore, if one of the gittin was lost, hasheni batel, the second one is invalid because the second one can't possibly affect a full gerushin, a full divorce for either of the two women, since we don't know who it belonged to. Hey Zayin. Katav chanichato chanichata keshera. If instead of writing the name of the father of the principal parties of the divorce on the get, if instead nicknames were used, it is kosher. So typically you have Ploni ben Ploni or Plonit bat Ploni. We have the name of the individual, if they have a middle name too, and then their father's name. But people might be known by alternative names, not exactly the one they were given at birth. So if we use that, it's kosher. Pefet. Get me'usa b'Yisrael kasher. A coerced get, being coerced by the hands of Jews, is kosher. Of the kochavim, pasul. If it was coerced by the hands of non-Jews, it's not kosher. However, in the case of non-Jews using physical coercion, violence, force, and telling the Jewish man to do what the Jews are telling him to do, meaning the Gentiles are acting as the goon squad for authoritative Israel vis-a-vis this recalcitrant husband, that is kosher. But the Gemara then clarifies, get meusa b'Yisrael kedin kosher shelo kedin pasul. When we say that a get meusa is kosher, it means if the coercion was done by Jews in a circumstance where the law calls for a divorce and requires it of the husband, and he simply has to be bludgeoned into to compliance, then it's kosher. However, if the force that was applied was done shelo kedin, not in accordance with the law, because in that particular case it wasn't warranted, but it was applied anyway, then such a get ma'usa is pasul, invalid. Everyone have a great week.